Now, as we take a live look at the Chesapeake Bay from our soaked camera, lawmakers are discussing a bill amendment that environmentalists worry will set back restoration efforts in the bay. It would prevent the EPA from requiring states to follow pollution reduction efforts, which is part of the Clean Water Act. 13 News Now reporter Jacqueline Lee explains.
Advocates and stakeholders of a cleaner Chesapeake Bay say if the bill amendment passes, it'll undo years of progress.
These waterways are very important to me, my family, and many of the people that I know. And to see their progress reversed would be tragic.
Tanner Council with the Chesapeake Bay Foundation said that ever since the 6 watershed states surrounding the Chesapeake Bay joined the Clean Water Blueprint back in 2010, restoration efforts have made a lot of progress.
We're seeing water clarity in ways that we haven't seen in generations. We're seeing oysters come back and other fisheries come back. This is what it starts to look like when we start to have healthy water again.
But Council says that healthy water will be at risk if a bill amendment, part of an appropriations package, passes the Senate. It already passed the House. Sponsored by Representative Bob Goodlatte, it prevents the EPA from using federal funds to enforce the states to follow pollution reduction goals as part of that Clean Water Blueprint.
Without those backstops, there's no accountability for the states. So one state starts to falter, that can derail the entire progress of the Chesapeake Bay cleanup.
But Goodlatte said in a statement that his amendment doesn't stop efforts to clean up the bay. It simply says the EPA cannot be allowed to railroad the states and micromanage the process, to which Council disagrees. He says making sure states stick to their pollution reduction goals is vital.
It is the best, most realistic shot to actually restore the bay in our lifetime. And there's real concern that if this is thrown off track, that I don't know when we'll get another chance to do it.